Okay, peace and blessings, everybody. It's your brother Sorry back with yet another one. Trying to knock out one real quick in the morning. Today I wanted to go over an interesting topic. Today I'm pretty sure y'all see the title of the playlist. Excuse me, not title of the playlist. The playlist is we dipping back into that um human photosynthesis, melanin, sound, and light. So we're going to kind of take a break from the electric soul. We're still going to utilize that framework of the bioetheric feedback loop, but we're going to dip back into the human photosynthesis and utilize that same framework. So we're gonna get into, you know what I mean. In this video, we're gonna get into. We always talk about, there were giants in the earth in those days, and saying how things grew larger on the planet at one particular time. How at some point in time we had dinosaurs on the planet, mastodons, saber-toothed tigers, and all that. And nowadays we have what would be conceived as miniature human beings from that perspective. There's a transition. Now we liken that transition from a transition from the Holocene to the excuse me, from the Pleistocene to the Holocene. The Pleistocene being the era in which you have dinosaurs, mastodons, and all that, and the Holocene being our current era in which we live now. So we're going to examine that through a electrical framework, and we're going to see like what were the electrical conditions of the planet like um, in that particular era, because this was a long period of time, millions of years of time. The Earth was like this. So we're going to examine what was the Earth like that what was the Earth like from an electrical perspective. Um, what would be the implications, because we're always given the picture of the people who lived in this particular time. We're always painted the picture like they're primitive caveman type people and stuff like that. So and as we've kind of debunked that a little bit, is when we go back into our series on the whole Sabian thing and everything like that, we pretty much established people in the ancient world were held true genius around the time of the Sabian phase in ancient Egypt, as described by Gerald Massey or whatever. That's when they developed all of their spiritual technology, tantra, serpent, wisdom, kundalini, all of that stuff like that. So they were highly spiritual. We talked about how the melanin corresponds as a transducer. Transducer is another word for bishop from the X-Men. You take one frequency of energy and then you absorb it and you turn it into something else. Transmute and modulate like a modem. You know what I'm saying? The keystrokes turn into electrical signals, and then they go into the internet, and then they come up on this side, on my side, with my screen where I can see them. You see what I'm saying? Transmitter modulator. That's what melanin is, or whatever case may be. We talked about melanin is heavily concentrated in the brain. Melanin is heavily concentrated in the heart. Melanin is heavily concentrated in the skin. Melanin is heavily concentrated in the fascia, and all of those things um, deal with neurons, and the fascia deals with this piezoelectric capability. So we're gonna get into all that in the wee hours of the morning this morning. Before we get into that, man, I just want to say peace to the ancestors. Love y'all, miss y'all, man. When I say love y'all, miss y'all, I'm talking about all the patriarchs of all our great families and stuff like that. Big mama, you know what I'm saying? Big daddy, you know what I'm saying? All the ones that kept our families together and stuff over time. Love y'all, miss y'all. You know what I'm saying? As far as the true and living, peace to the true and living. You know what I'm saying? We the fruits of big mama, big daddy, you know what I'm saying? We the fruits of all those people and everything like that. So peace to the true and living. Who is the true and living, man? If you've been watching this for any duration of time, if you can bear with me, you know what I'm saying, through all the transitions and fluctuations of the very subject matter that we talk about, you must be the true and living. Peace and blessings to you, man. We're gonna get into this. All right, with no further ado, let's kind of hop in. Okay, so this is an analysis of the bioetheric feedback loop, electrical environmental determinants of the epochal morphological scaling. Man, that's a mouthful, ain't it? Um, okay, so uh, The bioetheric feedback loops. Remember, we talked about we're dealing with the soul as if it's electrical. So we're dealing with the soul. The first person in modern times to kind of deal with that was Pascal Beverly Randolph. Um, he lived prior to Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla wasn't alive at the same time as Pascal Beverly Randolph. Pascal Beverly Randolph was a spiritualist and a Rosicrucian who kind of came with the idea that the soul is potentially electrical in nature. Okay, so Randolph wasn't alive at the same time as Tesla. So Tesla had a whole framework, heavily influenced by the metaphysics of Swami Vivekananda and everything like that. So he had a whole particle-less um, physics framework. So we're going to kind of combine the two um, through the gateway of some of Robert Becker's research, if you've been following any of this, what we're talking about. Okay, so the bioetheric feedback loop. So basically what we're saying is that the human soul is a feedback loop from the person having the experience to the human soul and stuff like that. So all the experiences of our life, inclusive of karma and everything like that, it's a feedback loop. All the people we meet, all the stuff like that, it's a feedback loop from what we're calling the blueprint or the soul to the individual having the experience. And it's numerous videos on that. We've been doing this, we've been running about 6 years on this whole, kind of thing. So, executive summary, let's get it. Okay, the profound disparity in maximum viable organism size between the ancient Pleistocene era, typified by gigantism such as dinosaurs and mastodons. What we were just talking about in the Pleistocene era, you got bigger things growing, and the contemporary Haloscene era, where we are now, the Haloscene era, the new era, the new sun, characterized by smaller morphological scaling. So me and you, your mom and your cousin too, all us are small. Compared, we're not dinosaurs, we're not giants, right? Okay, so presents a significant challenge to purely conventional bioenergetic models. This report utilizes the bioetheric feedback loop to hypothesize that this differential, right, morphological scaling is fundamentally dictated by a secular variation in the magnitude and coherence of the planetary electrical environment. What? So basically, the difference in size had to do with the electrical environment on the planet. Right, so that's the difference. That's the reason why we can't grow dinosaurs naturally right now, because the electrical environment on the planet um, does not facilitate the growth of dinosaurs and and mastodons and all of that. That larger biology requires less electrical impedance, like what we've been saying, less resistance to facilitate electrical communication to the various parts of this huge dinosaur's body. So we're going to get into that, right? Okay, so the planetary electrical environment as an omnipresent energy source and biophysical modulator, transduced, Bishop from the X-Men, we keep saying, through a specific suite of biological semiconductors. Okay, so the environment is conducted, the electricity in the environment is conducted through all these various semiconductors that we talked about earlier in my little rant in the beginning of this video: melanin, fascia, bone, and one of the most important, the mitochondria. Remember we said in Star Wars, the mitochondria is where they get midichlorians from. That's why Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one, because he got a high midichlorian count and he can sense the force. So I'm trying to make the correlations here. Okay, so the central thesis maintains that the epoch of gigantism, the Pleistocene, resulted from an environment optimized, right, by a high, stable, physical electrical environment. What? So that was more the optimal environment. That's why things could grow bigger, because that was the optimal electrical environment. Let's get into this. This condition functioned as a continuous planetary scale bioelectrical stimulus, maximizing mitochondrial efficiency. What? So on the video, when I was talking about the Sabian phase, and my little rant in the beginning of the video, when I was talking about, oh, this is the Sabian phase, synonymous with Satya Yuga in the Vedic tradition. This Sabian phase, as mentioned by Gerald Massey, is the actual phase, nothing in mythology, actual serpent motifs and actual things, real tangible stuff. Okay, this phase or what have you was from a time when the melanin was functioning at its higher capacity. I think I said that in the previous video. Now we're fleshing it out with all the scientific data. So this is what I meant when I was talking about that. Conversely, I know a lot of y'all probably thought I was being ultra pro black when I was talking about melanin in that video. But again, like how we said, melanin is not a black thing. Melanin is a human thing, as we're going to see. Okay, so conversely, the Haloscene Era is defined by a significantly reduced and electrically perturbed physical electrical environment baseline. It's excited physical electrical baseline exacerbated by anthropogenic electromagnetic field noise. Hold on one second. Conversely, the Haloscene area, okay, so this is where we are, is defined by significantly reduced and electrically perturbed um, uh, physical electrical environment baseline. So the environment that we live in contrast to this Pleistocene era when you could grow dinosaurs, our environment is let's see, it's exacerbated with noise, electromagnetic noise or whatever, and the it's reduced in its electrical capacity. So we live in a further reduced aspect of that. We don't live in our environment's electrical potency is in a lesser quality than it was when we were in the Pleistocene. This reduction introduces systematic biological impedance resistance, compromises mitochondria repair capacity. So the mitochondria cannot repair itself as well in this environment or whatever case may be. The resistance. Remember we said the mitochondria or whatever. There's mitochondrial DNA. The DNA is the antenna for the blueprint or whatever case may be. A lack of being able to repair something would suggest not being able to stay in contact with the blueprint. And we're going, as we get into the video on Rasayana, filtered through this same framework, it's going to tell us that that's the reason why we age, losing contact with the blueprint, degradation of the DNA. But we're going to get into that. This reduction introduces systematic biological resistance, compromises mitochondrial repair capacity, leading to accelerated senescence and I'm mispronouncing that word. And imposes energetic and structural constraints that fundamentally limit maximum viable size and longevity. So when you get into the Bible and stuff like that, even though I'm saying the Bible is cliff notes for a lot of your more ancient civilization stories, you still get situations where you get people living 900 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. When you get into the Sumerian kings list, when you get into the Egyptian kings list, when you talk about demigods ruling for 5,000 years and 3,000 years and all that, okay, yeah, because okay, it's going back into a time like this when the electrical environment on the planet was different and longevity was more easily sustained versus now we cannot sustain those long lifespans because the electrical environment on the planet is substantially different. So let's go. Theoretical framework, principles of the bioetheric feedback loop model. Okay, defining the bioetheric feedback loop model and non-conventional premises. Hold on, man. Cheers. Let's get it. The bioetheric feedback loop model posits that, and it's 5 a.m., y'all, you know what I'm saying? So we getting it. Okay, posits that biological complexity, if efficacy and scale are not solely dependent upon metabolic energy derived from chemical processes. Remember in previous videos, we were saying that we're moving away from the chemical biological aspect of medicine and we're getting more into energy and stuff like that. Okay, e.g. ATP synthesis, but are continuously augmented by non-classical energy inputs, here termed etheric energy. This energy is hypothesized to couple directly to terrestrial life via planetary electrical environment. So the environment is the source of a lot of their etheric energy and stuff like that these organisms actually have access to. We're not dealing with it from none of the mythology and all that. We got a whole nother video in the Sabian playlist that talks about the mythology that's attributed to this era, but we're just going to go into the science and the electrical environment. Okay, so this coupling establishes a foundational, ubiquitous electrical circuit that influences systematic signaling speed, cellular repair mechanisms, right? So let's go back over that. This energy hypothesized to couple directly to terrestrial life via the planetary electrical environment. This coupling established a foundational ubiquitous electrical circuit that influences systematic signaling speed, the speed of the nerve impulses, cellular repair mechanisms, right? And structural stability, particularly in complex, large scale systems like giants, freaking Nephilim, like y'all like to say. Um, what else? Dinosaurs, mastodons, large scale systems where conventional chemical signaling is inherently constrained by diffusion kinetics. Okay, the success of giantism, right, demands that the biological system maintains structural, metabolic, and communicative coherence across vast distances. It has larger tissues and larger, more cells and things or whatever, larger surface area to distribute charge over. The Bio-Etheric Feedback Loop suggests that the physical electrical environment provides the necessary energetic support and organizational coherence, acting as a global synchronizing signal, ensuring the effective management of high-capacity biological architecture, essentially for achieving and sustaining colossal dimensions like dinosaurs. So the environment, the electrical environment produced by the planet in the Plecticine, for whatever reason, um, whatever made the electrical environment on a planet like this is what would have facilitated these colossal frames and these colossal structures or what have you. Because we often, when we think about dinosaurs and giants or whatever, we think about giants from a biblical sense or whatever case may be, but we often don't think about the human biology of a giant and what the nerve impulses and the energy that it would actually take to sustain something of that size relative to us. Okay, so the planetary electrical environment and global electric circuit. The planetary electrical environment is understood within the context of the global electrical circuit. The global electrical circuit is a continuous electrical system maintained by phenomena, right, such as thunderstorm activity worldwide, which charges the ionosphere to a positive potential relative to the Earth's surface. This potential difference, and it lists the whole, the equations, all that, typically around positive 250 kilovolts, drives a constant vertical current flow known as the air-earth conduction current. Density gives density and everything like that. Globally prevalent in fair weather regions. The relationship between the variables is defined by a variation of Ohm's law, where the current density is inversely proportional to the columnar resistance of the atmospheric column. It goes into all that. Air conductivity is directly proportional to the ionization rate, which above the surface depends principally on the flux of the galactic cosmic rays entering Earth's atmospheres. So it considers all of that. We're gonna get to the punchline. I'm just, as we always do. Y'all know I'm heavy on seasoning this up real good, and then about halfway in the video, we're gonna get you to the punchline. So, the analysis of this system indicates that the stability and magnitude of, let's see, hold on one second, make sure I'm saying that right. The current density constitutes the continuous omnipresent biophysical signal experienced by organisms at the surface. Since organisms are electrostatically coupled to the earth, we're walking on the planet, a principle substantiated by studies showing that grounding facilitates electron subconduction across biological tissues. A high current density implies a constant supply of external electrons into the organism. So basically, the high current density, what they're talking about, it supplies a constant flow of electrons or energy into the organism. This persistent electron flow is critical for neutralizing reactive oxygen species. So basically, the environment in itself, we're subject to oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is what makes you age and causes the breakdown of your DNA and everything like that. Okay, so their environment based on the electrical potency of their environment, it resolved their issue of oxidative stress. Their environment naturally regenerated them, is basically what it's saying. Okay, when I say them, I'm talking about dinosaurs, organisms, period. Okay, so let's see. Let's see here. The persistent electron flow is critical for neutralizing reactive oxidative stress, free radicals, and mm, rapidly attenuating chronic inflammation that metabolic processes alone cannot resolve efficiently. Right? Okay, melanin is a antioxidant. That's why some highly melanated people, they say black don't crack and all that stuff like that. That's an antioxidant. But they were saying that their environment um, their environment also had a similar effect. Okay, consequently, the Plecticine Era to support systematic gigantism must have sustained current density magnitude that was significantly higher and more stable than that in the Pleistocene, right? So we're gonna get into when we get into the left hand, right hand path tantra and everything like that. We're gonna talk about the purpose of those practices, how the purpose of those practices are two different methods of increasing voltage in the human organism and everything like that. One has a low voltage high stability type of deal. That's the right hand path, and another one has a high voltage high volatility type of deal. That's the left hand path or whatever. But that's a means of increasing voltage in the actual human. This is what they saying is their environment allowed for them to have more voltage, more voltage in the organism. This continuous low cost maintenance energy sources is pivotal for maximizing resource allocation toward growth. Okay, moving forward, environmental inputs, astrophysical modulation, and the physical electrical environment baseline. Okay. Let's see, galactic and solar flux cycles. The stability of the physical electrical environment is intrinsically modulated by external cosmic forces. Galactic cosmic rays, highly energetic particles composed mainly of hydrogen or helium nuclei, influence the physical electrical environment by creating cascades of ions upon entering the Earth's atmosphere. The ionization directly controls air conductivity, right? Because remember we said the surface of the planet, the air on the planet or whatever, the surface is a conductor, and the interior is more of an insulator or a dielectric, and consequently the columnar resistance fluctuations in solar activity, particularly solar wind and magnetic fields, modulate how the let's see galactic let's see here galactic cosmic rays let's see here galactic cosmic rays reach Earth, thus acting as the primary astrophysical control mechanism for the physical electrical environment magnitude. Crucially, galactic cosmic rays include high atomic number and high energy ions, which are notoriously detrimental to biological systems. Let's see, high energy ions interact with living matter, including DNA damage, mitochondrial dysregulation, and initiating prolonged state of steroid inflammation, right? So these particular cosmic rays under typical circumstances would be harmful. Cellular phenomena that mimic and accelerate the process of aging and frailty, fragility. Okay, so gigantism requires exceptionally long periods of rapid and sustained growth without accumulated catastrophic cellular damage, right? The sheer scale and longevity of megafauna during the Plecticine era necessitates a cosmic environment that was either significantly less harmful or a biological repair mechanism that was radically superior. Okay, so basically either they're saying there was less cosmic rays that affected them, or either their environment was just so electrically potent that it didn't even matter. They could repair their bodies at such an accelerated rate. Okay, so the Bio-Aetheric Feedback Loop posits that the Plecticine physical electrical environment was modulated to either minimize detrimental high energy ions exposure, perhaps via a constantly stronger or more stable planetary magnetosphere. They're saying maybe the atmosphere of the planet was different, acting as a galactic cosmic ray shield, or to maximize the beneficial electron flux current density. This high physical electrical environment served as a non-metabolic external energy supply that fueled the highly effective biological repair infrastructure. So their environment, um, it was like a supercharged environment. Thus, the condition supporting gigantism was likely a long term, millions of years, cosmic environment that facilitated a sustained state of low cellular senescence and high anti-damage buffering capacity. Right. All right. Uh, to use a Marvel Comics analogy, their environment damn near gave them Wolverine's healing factor. I mean, if any kids are watching or whatever, they kind of to make that relatable. Overcoming the inherent risks associated with high energy radiation that typically limits scale and longevity in the Holocene. So cosmic radiation is another thing that limits our ability to grow taller and live longer in this phase. Okay, so astrological correlates and geoelectric rhythmicity. Okay, we're going to get to the punchline a little bit further. Y'all bear with me a little bit longer. While established physics often discounts the direct physical forces exerted by distant planets as too weak to affect biological systems significantly, the Bio-Aetheric Feedback Loop considers the potential for gravitational and tidal interactions to modulate the Earth's dynamic systems, such as geomagnetism and atmospheric resonance, thereby imposing temporal patterns on the physical electrical environment. All right, let's see here. Biological research confirms that organisms utilize complex external cosmic rhythms for coordination. For instance, species on coral reefs synchronize crucial life history strategies and reproduction events using a combination of light, temperature, and lunar cues. This demonstrates that large biological populations rely on external cosmic rhythms to achieve population-wide temporal coherence, right? A highly stable and structured Pleistocene physical electrical environment would have provided robust, predictable, rhythmic signals, i.e. diurnal, the daytime, lunar, the nighttime, and potentially larger planetary cycles. This environmental coherence would translate into highly optimized temporal synchronization in processes like cellular division, okay, massive resource allocation and growth cycles across the vast bodies of megafauna. So they would have been able to grow larger and more efficiently based on this electrical environment. Conversely, Holocene life, let's compare where we at now, exposed to a physical electrical environment that is electrically noisier, more noise and resistance. You see what I'm saying? The signal strength is less clear, you know what I'm saying, and less strong and less coherent, struggles to maintain this critical temporal coherence. So we struggle to maintain a level of coherence that they had effortlessly. They meaning plants, animals, and all. This reduced predictability increases systematic inefficiency and limits the performance and persistence of highly specialized long cycle biological strategies required for gigantism. So everything required for gigantism to actually exist, that means that the electrical systems in these organisms have to be running at peak performance. You feel me? Unlike what we're doing now, apparently. You see what I'm saying? So this is an interesting contrast. This is letting us know what it looks like for this electrical system that we're talking about, that the body has to run at its peak performance versus um, um, less than optimal performance. All right, the biological transduction system, the cellular interface. Okay, the bioetheric feedback loop necessitates a physical mechanism by which macro-sized electrical changes in the physical electrical environment are translated into cellular level growth and coordination signals. This transduction relies on the body's intrinsic semiconducting biological matrix, primarily composed of fascia, melanin, and mitochondria. Okay, so this is the body's semiconducting matrix. Remember in other videos, we simplified it down. Semiconductor, what they call a semiconductor, can be likened to a capacitor. And a capacitor ain't nothing but a temporary battery. So it's like these things, fascia, melanin, mitochondria, function almost as temporary batteries for this electrical these electrical impulses. Let us keep moving. Okay, fascia as the primary bioelectrical conduit. Fascia is chock full of melanin. By the way, fascia, the connective tissue that wraps and gives form and function to virtually every body structure, is hypothesized to function as the primary conductor of the body's bioelectricity. The primary conductor of the body's bioelectricity. Now, when we get into our video where we talk about acupuncture, acupressure, and all that, it's going to talk about the fascia, and it's going to talk about how your acupuncture points are situated along fascial junctions, right? Okay, so non-conventional models such as fascia act like copper wire, like copper, for energy conduction. Restriction of this connective tissue matrix caused by trauma, inflammatory process of chronic poor posture, demonstrates its capacity to conduct bioelectric energy efficiently, leading to structural compensations and symptoms, right? Okay, the immense physical distances involved in Plecticine gigantism. Okay, think about how long it's the I can't remember the guy's name, but it's the guy. He's a geologist and he does the work on the mud fossils. Yeah, I'll probably link his channel in the bio and stuff like that. He talks about like mountain ranges. He might take a freaking mountain range or something like that, and he'll be like, okay, this is the body of a giant. See where this is the vein, this is the artery, this is where the blood is, and I examine this, and this ain't just red dirt, this is blood. That's kind of what he goes into. So he talks about not just a 7, 8 feet tall giant or a 20-foot tall giant. He talks about giants the size of freaking mountain ranges and stuff like that, laid out dead. You see what I'm saying? When you get into the book by Ovid, Metamorphosis, he talks about how when Zeus slays the giants, they laid all of they turn into like the landscape. They laid all out dead on the landscape. They mountain ranges and stuff like that. So we're talking about massive biological structures. So the immense physical distances involved in Plecticine gigantism mean that the fascial network, imagine the fascia of a giant the size of a mountain. Imagine that, just on a hypothetical. Okay, imagine the fascia of a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a Brontosaurus or a Stegosaurus or something like that, hypothetically. Okay, the Plecticine gigantism means that the fascial network must operate at near zero impedance, zero resistance, to maintain rapid, coherent system coordination. Studies involving grounding demonstrate that the electron semiconduction across collagen, all right, fascia is made of collagen, okay, pathways quickly attenuate chronic inflammation. So the more you pump across it, it has a propensity to become inflamed. Since fascia is rich in collagen, a sustained high potential physical electrical environment provides continuous global grounding, right? Effectively supplying constant electrons that clean the fascial copper wire, right? They clean it so it doesn't become inflamed, preventing inflammation and restriction, right? AKA resistance for the electrical impulse. Okay, so this continuous low impedance, low resistance state maintains maximal conductivity, which is essential for instantaneous long distance signal transmission required for controlling multi-ton organisms and synchronizing global cellular division rates. So you got let's say you got a giant the size of a freaking mountain to control the nerve impulses, to have them firing off like that from his arms to his legs, from his synapses and everything like that or whatever. That requires a lot of energy traveling a long way very fast. Okay, so let's get into melanin. Melanin, the semiconductor and energy regulator. Melanin often associated only with pigmentation. We kind of went deeper and expanded, y'all. If y'all are true and living for real and y'all been watching these videos and stuff like that, y'all should know we've already talked about that, what melanin is in a broader scale. So melanin, often associated with pigmentation, plays a profound role in the Bio-Aetheric Feedback Loop as a solid state interface that captures, transduces, and distributes physical, electrical, environment energy flux. So it distributes the energy from your environment. I think we talked about that when we talked about the the human biofield. Okay, so melanin is present in substantial quantities in the fascia. Didn't we say that? And the neuromelanin is found throughout the neural structures in the brain. Critically, melanin is described as having superior conducting properties at room temperature and is theorized to regulate nerve cell firing, potentially acting as a superconductor. So potentially, melanin is at best, it's a superconductor. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the effects on the melanin. What, because then Brother Saw say, when we were talking about the Sapien phase, when they found Tantra and the Marmor points and all this stuff like that, or whatever case may be, they were highly spiritual and they had access to some at some level of higher function of their melanin. Let's see what that looks like. In the high potential plasticine physical electrical environment, the ambient field provided the necessary energetic stability for melanin to operate at peak efficiency. What? Possibly achieving a low loss, high coherent, superconductive state. What? So, okay, so apparently whatever we got going on, it ain't a superconductor state and it's not operating at its maximum efficiency. So this stuff can do something, or could or has done something in the past that it's not currently doing now. This state will facilitate the instantaneous long distance communication required for complex biological systems coordinating tremendous scale. The plasticine melanin thus maximize the coupling efficiency between the external physical electrical environment and internal fascial network. The coupling efficiency, right, between the environment and the organism itself, or whatever case may be. I think Dr. Jack Cruz, he was saying that melanin, when melanin came into the picture, it enabled more diverse life forms to be grown on the planet because it's more efficient with energy transfer and transmutation than chlorophyll in plants. Okay, so conversely, the Holocene. Okay, so where we at now? Conversely, the Holocene, the physical electrical environment deficit and environmental noise, electrical noise degrade melanin's optimal performance. What? Likely reducing it to a standard, less efficient semiconductive role. So right now, this stuff that I'm wearing is less semiconductive than it would have been in the Pleistocene. Okay, so this increases energy loss and signal dampening. Right, so I can't sense the ether like I would have been able to do in the Pleistocene during transduction, thereby capping the maximum size capacity, sustainable by the reduced level of bioelectric coordination. So things can't grow as large. You see what I'm saying? Because the melanin ain't, it's dampened. It's not running at its full capacity. So that's another major reason why things cannot grow as large on the planet. There were giants in the earth in those days, right? Not no more, because the melanin is not functioning at its maximum optimal proficiency. So mitochondria, the regulator of senescence and energy output. Mitochondria are central to both metabolic energy production, ATP, and the management of cellular longevity, how long you live. Their function is directly affected by external electromagnetic fields. External electromagnetic fields, right? Pulsed electromagnetic fields and complex magnetic fields have been shown to influence mitochondrial membrane potential and cell cycle regulation. Conversely, the damaging component of cosmic radiation, high energy ions, triggered significant mitochondrial dysregulation, resulting in inflammation and phenomena that mimic accelerated aging. So when the mitochondria is damaged, the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondria of the cell is damaged. This is how we start aging, or whatever case may be, or this contributes significantly to aging, right? So how did this electrical environment influence the mitochondria? All right, let's see. Gigantism requires not only massive energy production, but also robust cellular maintenance and repair capability over extended periods. The stable, high physical electrical environment of the Plecticine era provided constant external electromagnetic support. This support maintained maximal mitochondrial membrane potential, enhancing the cellular repair mechanism necessary to counter high energy induced high energy ions induce damage. This external energy source efficiently boosted ATP efficiency and minimized cellular frailty. Uh, frailty, excuse me, I'm tripping. Permitting the external growth, it's early in the morning, y'all. Permitting the external growth cycles necessary for achieving enormous size, right? So this, our current environment cripples the melanin, cripples the mitochondria relative to what it was in the Pleistocene era. This implies that the physical electrical environment serves as a planetary scale battery. The physical electrical environment serves as a planetary scale battery charger, right? Ensuring all your organisms are walking around in a environment that's a basically a battery charger for them. Their whole ecosystem is a electrical battery charger for a walking semiconductor, basically. Ensuring the organism's intrinsic repair capacity always exceeded the rate of cosmic damage. Their repair capacity exceeded the damage that they were taking in, right? In the Holocene, the reduced physical electrical environment buffering capacity leaves mitochondria vulnerable. Okay, in the Holocene where we are now, the reduced physical electrical environment buffering capacity, our environment is less electrical now, leaves mitochondria vulnerable to high energy ion damage and reliant primarily on localized chemical energy. We're reliant on chemical energy. Wow. So that might be another reason when we have this conversation about human photosynthesis. And um, the logical question would be, all right, if we can do all this photosynthesis, why we still got to eat food? Bam. There you go. In that previous high energy environment, not saying that they didn't have to eat food or whatever the case may be, but their ability to synthesize and transduce energy from their atmosphere would have been a lot more than what we have access to right now. So that would have been a more viable type of thing, human photosynthesis at that particular time. In theory, they could have potentially relied less on food. You know what I'm saying? Potentially. Okay. This fundamental energetic shift increases the rate of accumulated damage sustenance and imposes a strict biological constraint on maximum achievable size and longevity, right? Plecticine Era, epoch of gigantism, optimal bioetheric feedback loop conditions, right? The optimal conditions. Let's get into this, right? Let me sip. Let me sip one more time. All right. Trying to get through this. I know it's early in the morning, so you know what I'm saying. High stable. Let's see here. ETEP and systematic superconductivity. Okay, the Plecticine area was characterized by an optimal terrestrial electrostatic potential, ETEP. This high physical electrical environment provided a continuous high potential electrical field baseline, effectively functioning as a global grounding pad that maintained all biological semiconductors, organisms, in other words, melanin, fascia, and collagen at peak energetic conductive efficacy. So there's basically no resistance. Everybody's you're basically they're walking superconductors. In this phase, the melanin would have been a superconductor for real, for real. Right now, it's a lesser order semiconductor right now. In this phase, it would have been a superconductor at full power. This state ensured minimal chronic inflammation, rapid system detoxification, instantaneous neural and bioelectric signal speeds, um, uh, like you trying to get faster internet. Such optimized conductivity and rapid repair were non-negotiable prerequisites for metabolic synchronization and effective control required across multi-ton bodies. If we have giants the size of mountain ranges, this would have been a must to even produce something like that, right? Okay, so mechanism for bone density and scaling. The capacity for giantism is fundamentally limited by the structural strength of the skeleton, because that's been an issue with people who suffer from giantism. A lot of times they'll grow so tall and they'll have issues with certain ones of their glands and their skeleton and things of that nature. Because their skeleton cannot support the weight of their frame and all that. The physical electrical environment played a critical role, non-metabolic rate, in supporting the required hyperdensity of plasticine bone. Modern orthopedic research provides considerable evidence that external biophysical stimulation therapies such as PEMFs and capacitively coupled electric fields significantly promote bone healing, osteogenesis, and combat conditions like osteoporosis. Under the bioetheric feedback loop framework, the stable, high physical electrical environment of the plasticine act as an omnipresent, subtle, uh, capacitively coupled electric field, and what, let me see here, PEMF environment. The piezoelectric nature of bone mean it generates electric fields under mechanical stress. However, the physical electrical environment provides continuous ambient electrostimulation independent of mechanical load. So basically, the stress that you would get, like when astronauts are in space, they have problems with their bone density because they're not walking or standing, so they don't get the stress of walking and standing like you and I get. So that gives our bones density. What this is saying is basically the electrical environment itself contributed to the density of their bones. They did walking was not the sole walking and doing physical things was not the sole contributor to the density of their bone. The electrical environment contributed to the density of their bones. So this is what that's saying. This mechanism overcame the typical allometric scaling constraints where mass increases faster than structural strength. In the Haloscene, here where we at now, the reduced physical electrical environment means bone construction relies predominantly on localized, mechanically induced piezoelectric effects and hormone regulation. So we have to walk, run, jog, and do physical things in order to make our bones dense. These individuals in the Pleistocene did not have to do that, limiting were not limited to that, limiting the maximum density and structural integrity achievable, thereby capping maximum viable body size. So this is another reason why we're small people relative to how giants and stuff like that. So optimized bioetheric feedback and co-evolution, the stability of the Pleistocene environment was not merely a matter of coincidence, but likely a result of a powerful positive bioetheric feedback loop, right? The Gaia hypothesis suggests that the living organisms co-evolve with actively reshape the Gaia hypothesis suggests that living organisms co-evolve with and actively shape the planetary environment to maintain optimal conditions. Given that early scientists like Vladimir Vernadsky recognized that living organisms fundamentally restructure the atmosphere, i.e. oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide production, it is logical to extend this influence to let's see, GEC. Okay, this uh, this sheer biomass and gigantic scale of plasticine megafauna, coupled with the dense conductive fascial infrastructure, likely reinforce the high potential physical electrical environment. Mass movement across the planet's surface interacting with the atmosphere's electrical field will generate large-scale piezoelectric effects. This mass collective biomass enhance global biochemical cycling and potentially stabilize the geomagnetic environment necessary for minimizing high energy ion risk. Thus, the Pleistocene era was characterized by a runaway positive feedback loop. A runaway positive feedback loop. So not only is the environment like this highly potent electricity, the interaction of the organisms within this structure or whatever feeds it even more, or whatever case may be. Okay, so the Holocene, where we at now, transition signals a major systematic perturbation, potentially astrophysical or geomagnetic, that broke the high energy stability. So we at a low energy state. You see what I'm saying? Okay, Haloscene Era, epoch of anthropocentric reduction, disrupted bioetheric feedback loop condition. So in our where we're at, that high energy potency state that we were just talking about, that's been disrupted. Something happened to the planet. We're theorizing around 12,000 BC something that changed the planet and got us into where we are now after millions of years of being like how it was. Okay, so the Haloscene era is characterized by a secular decline in the stable ETEP. What we say that, well, I want to keep with my acronyms, capacitively coupled electric fields. Okay. Um, Baseline and an increased level of environmental chaos. Furthermore, the natural decline is compounded by human activity, notably ubiquitous generation of artificial electromagnetic fields. Artificial electromagnetic fields, cell phones, you see what I'm saying, laptops and things of that nature, development, infrastructure, things of that nature, development such as industrial revolution, including power lines, telecommunications, IG, 5G networks. Again, you want faster internet, don't you? And consumer electronics that substantially enhance and scale the scale and complexity of electromagnetic environment. This is that noise that we were talking about, the electromagnetic noise that we were talking about. These technical sources generate variable electronic currents, particularly in the extremely low frequency range, which are now nearly ubiquitous in domestic and industrial environments. The constant presence of these artificial alternating currents fundamentally disrupts the natural, subtle bioelectric signaling network maintained by the physical electrical environment. This disruption increases the background electromagnetic noise, okay, significantly lowering the signal to noise ratio. So you can't sense the ethers. You can't get these impressions from the ether and all that. Okay, so for the vital physical electrical environment signal that life forms rely upon for synchronization and maintenance, right? Okay, compromised bioelectric transduction. The consequence of weakening noisy physical electrical environment are immediate within the biological transduction system. The reduction in continuous electron flow. It's not like it's not flowing into the environment, does not support us as far as electron flow as robustly as it did before. From the diminished physical electrical environment decreases the body's ability to neutralize a reactive oxygen species. So our bodies in this particular era have a decreased ability to fight against free radicals and everything like that, leading to increased systematic oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. AKA we age faster. Our bodies deteriorate faster. You ain't living to 500 years old no more in this era of time. This accelerated cellular damage effectively caused the fascial copper wire to become twisted and crushed. You see what I'm saying? Drastically raising systematic impedance, resistance. The high impedance slows bioelectric signals and restricts the global energy distribution necessary for managing large biological systems. Like I said in a video to follow this, we're going to talk about the yoga and left and right hand tantra and how they're using certain practices to increase the voltage, and how we talk about the regular person, the average person that does not train their electrical system in any type of yogic tradition or anything like that. The average person naturally has a very low voltage, and they go through all these yogic practice and spiritual training or whatever to increase the voltage in the individual or whatever catch may be electrical system. Okay, so mitochondrial vulnerability and accelerated frailty. The most critical constraint imposed on Holocene life is the loss of physical electrical environment as a repair buffer. The combination of reduced electromagnetic shielding, lower physical electrical environment, and persistent exposure to DNA damaging high ionizing cosmic rays leads to the unchecked mitochondrial dysregulation and inflammation. Talking about us. This results in accelerated frailty and aging. We just said that. The physiological state observed in astronauts exposed to cosmic rays, rapid onset of disorders typical of aging, mirror the imposed constraints of the Holocene environment on planetary life. Under this vulnerability, organisms reach their senescence limit far earlier, right? It's a high entropy is high in this phase or whatever, capping the duration of sustained robust growth and significantly limiting maximum achievable size. You ain't growing a mastodon in 2025 unless you clone one. Holocene organisms must dedicate a much larger portion of their energy budget to repairing damage that the Plecticine physical electrical environment subsidizes externally. So a lot of our energy, our body's energy that we accumulate throughout the day or whatever case may be, is dedicated to repairing the damage that's caused from our day-to-day avocations. Whereas in the Pleistocene, their environment repaired any damage that they incurred less damage from the environment, and their environment actually it repaired the damage. Okay, so this shift transformed size limitation from an architectural problem into a continuous energetic and repair debt problem, a repair debt. Diminished structural potential in Holocene bone maintenance and density are achieved largely through localized mechanisms, mechanical loading, and hormonal regulation. To make your bones dense, you got to walk and run. The loss of ambient continuous, let's see, capacitively coupled electric fields, PEMF support provided by the Pleistocene physical electrical environment means that the maximum attainment bone density required for gigantism is impossible to reach metabolically. So it is impossible under these current conditions, these current electrical environmental conditions, it is impossible to grow a giant naturally. Okay, the observable morphological reduction in the Holocene is thus seen not as a failure of growth potential, but as an evolutionary compensation strategy. Since the environmental support for building and maintaining robust structural strength at gigantic scales has diminished, organisms must evolve smaller or less structurally demanding forms to remain viable. So our forms that we adopt in this is subject to the availability of the energy in our environment. If our environment had more robust forms of energy, we would grow larger. Due to the fact we have a scarcity of energy right now. You see what I'm saying? We talked about the circle of space, matter, and time. We talked about the Jane cosmology, the top half of the circle and the bottom half of the circle. The top half of the circle is more robust with energy. This, we scrape in the bottom of the barrel of this and this. You see what I'm saying? In this bottom half of the circle, Kali Yuga type of mentality. The current therapeutic use of PEMF in modern medicine to treat osteoporosis and promote fracture healing is in effect a localized technological attempt to artificially restore the bioelectric condition that the Pleistocene physical electrical environment provided globally continuously, right? Okay, so synthesis and conclusion, man, appreciate y'all riding with me this whole time, but I think this has been an interesting piece. The Bio-Aetheric Feedback Loop Model provides a cohesive framework for understanding epochal and morphological scaling by linking astrophysical inputs, terrestrial electrodynamics, and specific cellular mechanisms. The Pleistocene Bio-Aetheric Feedback Loop state was characterized by the relationship external physical electrical environment supports optimal biological transduction, you know what I'm saying, and maximal cellular efficacy. You see what I'm saying? So the environment is constantly charging the battery, basically. Okay, so Holocene bioetheric feedback loop, where we at now? External physical electrical environment deficit, noise, high biological resistance. We can't sense the energy. If I tell somebody, hey man, such I was thinking about such and they called me or whatever the case may be, oh, that's just a coincidence because it's such a scant thing and it's so much resistance that those aspects of our abilities and those aspects of our ability to transfer energy are so scant that, oh, that's just a coincidence. It's not even a real thing to us. We're so far removed from this. Okay, accelerated senescence. We expire faster. We deteriorate faster under this environment. Okay, so the subsequent difference lies not simply in energy availability, but in repair capacity. Pleistocene organisms utilize a planetary powered mechanism for continuous damage repair, minimizing cumulative cellular debt and permitting growth durations compatible with immense size. Holocene life is subject to intrinsic limits on repair rates imposed by weakened physical electrical environment and compounded by artificial electromagnetic interference, right? Okay, so modeling the feedback loop closure, Pleistocene anomaly, the co-evolving dynamic process described by alternative Gaia theory suggests that life and environment converge toward optimal states in the Pleistocene. The gigantism achieved through high physical electrical environment acted as a stabilizing factor. The immense bioelectrically coupled biomass likely enhanced local atmospheric ionization or contributed to geomagnetic stability, reducing harmful high energy cosmic ray flux and reinforcing the physical electrical environment baseline, right? This suggests that Pleistocene life had access to non-metabolic energy source that managed the inherently complex orchestration of massive systems. The environment basically fed them. This external energy allowed biological complexity to scale unprecedented levels. When this supporting energy resource declined, as it is now, the Holocene, after post 12,500 BC, post Younger Dryas, post biblical flood, all of that, biological complexity and scale had to be significantly reduced to maintain viability under constrained energetic parameters. Holocene life forms are constrained by size due to intrinsic energy limits and high maintenance costs. You know what I'm saying? In this environment, it's a high energetic cost to run these bodies. And let's see here. And we're limited on and there's a scarcity of energy. So it's a high cost and to run the body, and it's a scarcity of energy that's needed to run the body. All right, from the environment. Whereas Pleistocene forms benefited from massive physical electrical environment subsidization, were limited only by physical factors such as gravity, which they hyperdensity and which their hyperdensified bone structures successfully countered. Right, the functional states of the identified biological mediators directly determine the resulting maximal organism scale. And let's see here. Let's see here. Let me see. So that's let's see here. It's saying that to validate the Bio-Aetheric Feedback Loop and its application to epochal scaling, several lines of technical investigation are warranted. Paleomagnetic data correlation, comprehensive analysis is needed to correlate geological epochs characterized by gigantism with corresponding paleomagnetic data focused on geomagnetic field strength and reversal frequency. So it's going into that. The role of water in fascial conductivity, given that fascia relies heavily on its hydrated state. Research should explore how ambient physical electrical environment fluctuations affect the state of biological water, specifically the structured water matrix and exclusion zone water necessary for maintaining a low impedance, low resistance semiconductor pathway. So, yeah, just wanted to kind of get into some of that. So when we go into the whole thing about there being giants in the earth in those days and everything like that, and when we talk about the melanin was more functional at one period of time, when we get into certain literature and we read about the ancient Ethiopians and stuff like that, they're described like gods. We go back in the Egyptian kings list, we go back in the Sumerian kings list, and they talk about these people ruling for hundreds of years, thousands of years, them being giants and them being demigods and all that, or whatever case may be, them having certain abilities and all that stuff like that. Yeah, because they're closer to this period of time. And as we can see in the Egyptian kings list, it's a transition from when they straight up gods to their demigods and down to when they become humans or whatever. It kind of follows something similar to this transition. So that's pretty much what I had today. That's going we just gonna sit that right there in our melanin playlist. So that's gonna go into kind of give us a little bit of contrast of when the melanin would have actually been functioning at its optimal proficiency versus what we got going on now. So appreciate y'all, man. Y'all roll with me from 5 a.m. to 6. You know what I mean? So we're gonna keep pounding this and coming out with some more interesting pieces. Appreciate y'all time. Appreciate y'all energy. Peace and love, man. Y'all have a great day. I hope y'all have a productive experience today. You know what I'm saying? Thank y'all for y'all time. Catch y'all in the next one.